Let's get back into the game from yesterday then, Glenn. I mean, a first win, which is great. A chance for fans to see the new style of play. A decent result as well. You know, we scored 4 goals away from home. Can't remember when I was there and we scored 4 goals away from home. It was nice just to see a win, to be honest. So I know it was only Reading, but there were definite improvements on what we had to suffer last year.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said earlier, it's just the style of play, the intent to attack. There was some good I mean, you can kind of see the team sort of taking shape a little bit. Some of the youngsters who were involved against Benfica and Göztepe weren't there. You know, you've got Sam Amamoyo seems to have gone to the top of the list with regards to the youngsters who've not played much. He seems to be, you know, one of the wingers who's going to be there or thereabouts. I really enjoyed seeing Edozie come on because the kid's got something. You know, he can beat people in tight areas, and he knows when to inject some pace into the game. And he made that fullback look a complete mug, which was great. You know, so there were some positives. I mean, you know, I can't believe I'm saying this. I thought Adam Armstrong looked excellent. I think he's a limited player, but he can only play as one of the furthest forward players. I don't think he's great when he drops deeper or plays that left-hand side role, but you could see what he was about. And it's in 2 years we haven't really seen what he's about because we haven't really played to his strengths. And again, it's 1 goal in pre-season, but I thought he looked useful. And if he can play like that, then maybe he will surprise a lot of people, including me, and get some goals. And that was a tremendous finish for the goal. So fair play to him. And he wants to be here. That's another thing. He probably knows he might think he hasn't got many options, but he actually wants to be here. And that's I want to get rid of the players who let us down last year. And there were several.
And there's enough of them, yeah.
There's enough of them. I mean, you mentioned Salliser, who's pathetic last year in terms of his attitude. He'd have 1 good game
when he could be bothered to play.
Well, leading up to the World Cup, he had a couple of good games, and then once he got back from the World Cup, he just phoned it in. I mean, there's a few others as well, including ones I don't really like. Stuart Armstrong's been one of my favourite players over the 4 years he's been here, but he's phoned it in for the last year. Bella-Kotchap, he's just got to. It's not good enough just to look like a hard man. And you can't be a big tough centre half if you're made of biscuits and you break down every time it gets a little bit difficult. So he's another one. He could be a tremendous player, but he let us down last year. I know he's only young, but I want to get rid of these players. And you've seen the redemption of people like Bednarek as well. I know he's been away with Poland, so he's not really sort of played much in pre-season, but I like the look of his improvement at the tail end of last year, and I hope he stays. And to be honest, I think he will, and he'll probably be captain if Ward-Prowse goes. So yeah, you see little things within the team. Will Smallbone is another one. He's
game yesterday.
He's really good on the ball.
Yeah.
Part of we're talking about the defending when we lost the ball. He's a little bit lightweight, obviously, when we haven't got the ball. I mean, very, very lightweight, because a couple of times he could have cut off an attack at source and he was there in the right place, but he just didn't make the tackle. So that's obviously what he has to work on, as has always been the case with him, to be honest. He's always looked a little bit lightweight. But Russell Martin is apparently a big fan of him, so I think we're going to see a lot of him. But on the ball, I thought he was tremendous yesterday. So there are lots of positives. Nathan Teller coming back. He didn't look great against Göztepe, but probably the pitch, as we've said. I think everyone can be excused, but he looked much more lively, and we know he can do it in this division. It doesn't look like Burnley are going to come back and spend the money necessary. So,
they've got Redmond now, haven't they?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Have you seen their social media unveiling of him?
That's the most bizarre thing ever, isn't it? Their unveilings. You almost want them to sign someone like Teller just so you can see what the video is they're going to put out. But absolutely dreadful. Yeah.
I don't watch things because players are dead to me once they leave.
Heartless.
Absolutely.
No. too much water under the bridge. You didn't want to talk about it when he was here. So
no, absolutely not.
Steve, I don't know about you, but I did find yesterday that the players that came on actually looked as impressive as those that went off. It didn't feel like those substitutions that were made on the 71st minute or whatever, we didn't feel like a weaker side afterwards. Again, in the context that it was Reading, but it looked like they had a point to prove, some of those guys that came on.
Yeah, I mean, Aribo even moved, which was, I mean, that was a surprise to everybody, I think. But I think that just demonstrates. I mean, it's a combination of things, isn't it? It demonstrates that we got a bit of depth, certainly for this level, and also that the squad is still massive. And I mean, as we've discussed, there's probably, I mean, do we reckon they're probably still going to go in by the end of the transfer window, 6, 7, maybe. And some of those will be ones we want to get rid of. Some of those will be ones we don't. And it's, you're kind of biding time on that. But certainly those who came on didn't do their chances any harm. Certainly, I don't think there was anybody who came on that looked kind of all at sea. Gillette Sarr was an interesting one because defensively he was fine. But when he tried to kind of speed the game up a little bit and spray the pass wide either to the fullback or to the winger, basically every single pass he put too much on and it went about a yard away from the target and out of play for a throw-in, which is a little bit frustrating. But I think that's something he's just going to have to practice. I like that he's trying to ping the ball. I like that he's not trying to just make sure it gets there. Sort of in terms of just play it along the ground and wait for someone to then come and intercept it, which is what definitely would have happened last season. So I mean, the intent is there. It just the execution wasn't quite up to it. But
Gillette Sarr had 2 incidents right at the start of the second half. He tried to ping with his right foot out to the left wing and landed it perfectly. And I thought, oh, that was good. And then the next time he just tried to play a 5-yard ball to Tino,
just straight out
behind him.
But I mean, as Glenn said, Adozie looked very sharp when he came on. Gineppo, decent. Took the captain's armband.
Did he have? Did he have the captain's armband? Which I think
was not what anybody expected to see.
That's worrying.
But I think the big one for me of the players coming on was Ryan Manning. Because obviously you could see that he already knew what was expected of him positionally. So when we've got the ball on his side, you're out wide and you're pushing forward a little bit. When the ball kind of moves more in field, the player moves in field, and you're not a sort of traditional fullback anymore. You're almost playing that role that kind of Trent Alexander-Arnold has been kind of shoehorned into for Liverpool and England the last 6 months or so. And it's quite interesting. Tino Livramento hasn't quite got to grasp with it yet. I think the sort of stuff out wide he's absolutely fine with, but the bit where he has to move in field to a more congested area, I don't think he's quite comfortable with that just yet. But that'll come in time. Walker-Peters looked fine from the left. So no concerns there if he's still around come the start of the season. I mean the links, the rumours with him have gone very quiet. So not quite sure what's likely to happen with that. But I guess he's probably one of those players who's like 3rd or 4th choice for a half decent club, and they're basically waiting for the other choices to reject them, and then he's then getting his move back to the Premier League, I imagine.
Which is a shame because he's still got a lot to offer. Alfie, I just want to chat about those 2 soft goals that we conceded. I guess if we're taking the positive, it gives them something to work on this week. Maybe just a little reminder to Russell Martin about the personnel and the people that he's dealing with when we look at that back 5, which was so problematic last season.
Yeah, I think obviously Jan Bednarek, a little bit unlucky giving it away with the first one, but I did still give it away. And I think that the forward did nip it in front of him. And Jack Stevens looked a little bit slow on the recovery as well. Not that he had much chance. The first one was, relatively not too egregious. But the second one, obviously, we'd like to think that Gavin Bazunu is getting him out of the way early now. Obviously, he would have been very disappointed with his performances last season in the Premier League. I think we're pretty willing to put it down to being in the Premier League and sort of being in the bright lights and against experienced forwards. But against Gustepe and against Reading now, a couple of soft goals that he obviously won't be happy with. Russell Martin was pretty disappointed with the manner of them going in. So, I wonder if they need to have a look at that goalkeeper position, really. But obviously we want to give Gavin a chance, but I wouldn't be massively comfortable with just Gavin Bazunu, Alex McCarthy, and then Jack Bycroft, who obviously is a young lad. I think they probably need to get another goalkeeper in an ideal world, an experienced one who can push Gavin Bazunu. I think, Bazunu would probably still be my number one, but I think there's a couple warning signs now, and you don't want to have a situation like last year where it turns out you haven't got a good enough goalkeeper, and it's costing you games week in, week out. But
we're hamstrung to a degree by the fact that we've still got McCarthy probably on pretty high wages, and unless we can get him going, I can't honestly see us signing another goalkeeper. In an ideal world, we'd get rid of McCarthy and we'd sign someone else to be number one with Bazunu as the backup. But I thought. Obviously
someone's got to sign McCarthy, haven't they? Who's going to do that?
Yeah, no one. I mean, I thought the second goal was obviously bad from the keeper, and the Giuseppe one. And I thought if you watch the first goal from behind the goal, he's about a yard out of position. He just passes it into the middle of the goal. It's I know it would have been difficult to make a save in that situation anyway, but he's in totally the wrong place, and that in some ways was more worrying than the second goal. The second goal was, okay, it might have hit him and bounced away, but there was another free kick that he pushed back out into the danger area, which is what he did last year as well. So I think, we have a problem there. Unless he suddenly improves over the next couple of weeks, I think we're going to have a bit of an issue there going into the season if we've still got the same two players that we've got now.
Is that the problem area for you, Steve? It seems like everything else is kind of there or thereabouts, depending on who comes in, of course, and who goes. But is the goalkeeping department the one that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later?
I think it's the one that's most glaringly obvious. I think the midfield is kind of a massive unknown. I think central defence, assuming at least Bednarek and Stevens are still around, which I don't see any reason why either of those two would be leaving at this stage. As long as those two are around and they're fit for the season, they're good enough for this level. And I think that's probably a decent partnership. I think Stevens is a good organizer, and Bednarek's attitude has improved immeasurably since the start of last season. So I think those two are probably fine. Fullbacks, I think we're blessed, really, in the grand scheme of things. Central midfield, in the kind of sort of the sort of proper midfield and going forwards, I think we've got plenty of options there. It's the holding player that is the issue there, and I'm not quite sure how we're going to handle that, because realistically, I mean, we might get 3 or 4 games out of Lavia, but is he going to be going at 100%, knowing that he's almost certainly got a move coming up?
Yeah, I think that's what Shay Charles has been earmarked for.
Yeah, but then we've brought Charles on for his debut, and he's played at centre back.
It's interesting because I spoke to Shay obviously in Turkey, and he's a lovely guy, but he said very clearly that but Russell's told me my role is defensive midfield, and that's what I want to do. And then Russell said after the game yesterday that defensive midfield is where he sees him playing. So I'm not exactly sure why he came on something. I think it's just because of numbers. Just
to get him on and get some minutes, I assume. Yeah. So Glenn, if we're going to bring somebody in, it's got to be someone a bit more experienced in that role. Then, if we're going to address the keeper thing, and another 19-year-old kid from Manchester City is not the answer here. It's got to be somebody that has got some championship experience. The
good one's just gone to Burnley, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I would say so, yes, but like I said earlier, I don't see anything happening. I do think teams, some managers. I mean, look at the 3 teams that got relegated last year. There was us with our goalkeeper problems. Leicester had that absolute clown, Danny Ward, in goal, and Leeds had the guy with the big head. Yeah, he's rubbish. Yeah. He's rubbish as well. So that was the problem. Forest stayed up because they had Dean Henderson, who's decent, and Keylor Navas. So I'm not saying that's the only reason, but it's one of them. No lesser person than Brian Clough always said Peter Shilton was his best player because he had him. I realise that's a reference that many of you kids won't get. But,
ask your mum and dad.
But ask your granddad. But yeah, a goalkeeper is huge, and I think it was one of the massive problems that we had last year, along with those other teams who got relegated. Leicester get rid of Schmeichel, 1 season later, relegated. Yeah. So it is a huge issue, and I do believe we're taking a risk going in with it. I mean, I don't think McCarthy will suit. The thought of Alex McCarthy playing tiki-taka at the back is just horrendous. I mean, Bazunu is decent at that. But it's just the other aspects of goalkeeping he seems to be struggling with at the moment. But as Alfie said, hopefully he can get it sorted. I believe he will start as first choice. But I would certainly, in an ideal world, like to see some us signing a 27, 28-year-old goalkeeper. I mean, we let that guy go. How did Matthias Liss look, Steve, out in Turkey? I mean, he made one good save, didn't he?
He made a fantastic save in the first half. Did he only play the first half? I think so. He was solid. Didn't do anything wrong. But it was pre-season friendly in conditions that nobody really wanted to play in. And I think that's basically the only thing he had to do. A couple of crosses to take.
Just
maybe
a really strange signing, that one, wasn't it? Just the more you think about it.
It's bizarre that they seem to have not even given him an opportunity here.
Yeah.
When given the struggles, I mean, can he pass it on the floor? I mean, don't know because that pitch nobody was trying, or if they did, it went wrong. And I mean, can he make great saves? Yes, we saw him make one from, I think it was from
Ward-Prowse.
From Prowse, yeah. And so can he take crosses? Yes. That was demonstrated in that first half. So yeah, it's baffling that we've signed this guy on a free with seemingly no intention of even giving him the vaguest opportunity to compete for a place in the first team.
But that's what makes me think there must be a signing, because they've literally got 2 senior goalkeepers and they've still let Matt go out on loan. So they must be thinking of getting somebody in.
We've got a new goalkeeper coach, haven't we? Did one come in?
Yeah, Dean Thornton.
So he can barely have had a look at him before they punted him out to Turkey. So either they think he's really, I mean, they must think he's really bad. If they don't think he's capable of challenging the 2 that we've currently got, they either think he's terrible, or as Alfie says, we got another guy coming in.
And of course, they were talking about giving Caballero another year, weren't they? So they were happy to keep him on. But